Hello there, post-production Jake in the dark. Ooh, so I didn't really start noticing this until I got to, the part I'm editing right now, which is part 2 of the overall video. But my voice sounds a bit wobbly and robotic, so I did want to apologise for that before you actually watch the video, so I thought I'd get that out of the way now. So I'm, filming this after I've filmed the video and halfway through editing it, so, yeah, it's all a shambles. But I just wanted to give you that forewarning now. If I were to ask you what two divisive mediums have die-hard fan bases that include a lot of crossover, I'm willing to bet that those two things would be video games and superhero movies. I'm a big fan of both sides. I've been a fan of superhero media since I was little and a fan of video games since I was littler. I watched the Marvel action era as a kid, I saw the original and really naff but still endearing Fantastic Four movie, and even some DC properties, mostly Batman the Animated Series. And eventually I would start playing video games based on those properties. I've played my fair share of Spider-Man video games over the years, I've played games using characters from Marvel, characters from DC, even a Hellboy game at one point, and I've enjoyed quite a lot of them. So it is a bit of a shame that that particular crossover isn't as hyped up as it used to be. To face facts, people these days are just tired of superhero movies. There's still some gems these days like Shazam, the Spider-Verse movies, and Shang-Chi, but that doesn't prevent the sound of derisive sighs from disenfranchised fans with the feel of, we're just doing this again. While the MCU might be the best known example of the superhero fatigue that we're all going through, one thing that hasn't helped recently is the video games, more specifically the video games that rely on live service tosh, with games more keen to show off their big budget style and adding little in way of substance. Also, this video isn't explicitly about the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game that came out fairly recently, as I haven't played it, but I'm glad that that game came out because maybe, just maybe, big gaming companies will stop using the live service tosh model. Because yeah, superhero fatigue is bad enough, but add that to video game fatigue and it's somehow even worse. Luckily this video isn't going to really talk about all the negative stuff. This video is made to talk about the positives of superhero licensed video games, mostly from my perspective as a man in his 30s who has been a lifelong fan of both mediums in some way, shape or form. And this video won't go into any company's misdeeds or anything. This isn't research based, it's not hot take based, it's just good vibes, so let's focus on that as we move on. So before I properly get into this bit, I want to lay out the layout of this video in a way. This part will cover video games I played in my childhood, the next part will cover my secondary school and college years, and the last part will cover me in my 20s to now. I just wanted to clear that up so you have a bit more of a better outline. Having said that, for the life of me, I cannot remember what the first superhero video game I ever played was, so I'm just going to go over the games that I can remember. How about we start with the classic and the first in a series of mostly classics, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 Clash of Superheroes, which was a young Jakey's introduction to superheroes in video games. I wasn't super aware of Capcom at the time, but I knew about Marvel, and seeing things like Venom vs. Zangief or Captain America vs. Mega Man is still a baffling concept that's also held up well to this day. Obviously, this would persist with the sequel, which expanded the gameplay, roster and visuals, and I know people hated the soundtrack, but if you ask me, that shit slaps. In both of those games was a healthy smattering of X-Men characters, and that was arguably one of the biggest superhero properties at the time with its iconic animated show. By the way, is anyone else hyped as fuck for X-Men 97? Because I know I am. Anyway, let's stick to fighting games with X-Men Mutant Academy. If I could describe the Mutant Academy 2 game series, it would be like Marvel vs. Capcom but much more toned down. They had healthy rosters though, and the sequel introducing favourites like Havoc, Juggernaut, Nightcrawler and Psylocke was a great choice. X-MMA 2? Yes, see what I did there? Also had Spider-Man as a playable character. And of course, we can't finish this part without bringing up the web-slinging, voice-cracking Wallcrawler himself. To this day, I still adore those first two full 3D Spider-Man games for the PS1, from the mechanics to the story to the presentation and the overall feel. I haven't played them in a while, but of all the superhero-leaning games I've covered so far, that still has to be the fondest memory for me, and cemented my love for Spidey as my favourite superhero too. During my teen years, a lot of shifts started to happen in superhero media. By this point we had our fair share of superhero movies, but they were still considered a lot more niche back then. We also started getting more licensed superhero games based on movies rather than comics and TV shows, and while it wasn't perfect, this shit was my era of superhero gaming. So let's roll it off by starting with the X-Men Legends games, fantastic RPGs with great stories and rosters, and I love how they adapted that into the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance game too. I haven't played 2 or 3 of the Ultimate Alliance games, so I won't cover them here, but know that the Legends series and MUA1 are both fucking fantastic video games. We had the Raimi movie Spider-Man games as well, and while all 3 are pretty good, 2 is the top tier, and for my money, it's the best movie licensed superhero game to this day. A great sandbox, campy story, fantastic and unique combat mechanics, and it still looks great. It's just a shame that when it follows the story of the movie that it's based on, it kind of falls flat. But veering away from the movies, we still ate pretty good. We had Wolverine's Revenge, which is a great character-focused action stealth game, Ultimate Spider-Man, which adopts a damn good comic through line and has great visuals, and the Ghost Rider video game, which was literally just Devil May Cry with a flaming skull guy and it banged. And, of course, we get to the reason why this pod is named what it's named. Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction is one of those rare and genuinely perfect character-focused superhero games. From its amazing weaponizing mechanic to its design to the fact that you have so much space to cause so much damage, it's honestly the perfect Hulk game for my money, and it took up a lot of my teenage years, and I am so thankful for that. Now, it wasn't all just Marvel who had it on lock, as DC had its fair share of heavy hitters. There was the pretty great Justice League Heroes, the first Lego Batman, and the game that would make DC a true household name in Batman Arkham Asylum. I'll talk more about the sequels in part 3, but if Ultimate Destruction is the perfect Hulk game, Arkham Asylum is the perfect Batman game. The stealth sections, the combat, the storytelling, the setting, the soundtrack, the voice acting, the way the villains organically fit in, the continuity and little nods to the past and to the comic book lore. It is such a perfect Batman game, and it might just be the reason why DC branded video games are still going to this day. Of course, now we get into the modern era where the games aren't based on any specific comic book or movie timelines anymore, but more becoming their own original stories. I haven't played a lot of them, but I've dabbled on the likes of Marvel's Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. The latter is way more fun, by the way, but I get it. I get why people are so burnt out on superhero media these days, and people mostly just want games based on movies. But in a weird way, I'm glad that we're not getting that anymore, as it genuinely allows studios to stretch their creative muscles, introducing relatively unknown characters, ideas and concepts and stories, and in some cases even trying to change up the gameplay. And while we're at it, let's go back to my main man, my main Spider-Man. Shattered Dimensions is a fantastic Spider-Man game with a good story, and I like that you get to play as 4 different Spider-Men, and I do want to mention Web of Shadows as well, but of course, the main one that may have revitalized Spidey as a gaming property has to be Marvel's Spider-Man game released for Insomniac back in 2018. I still haven't completed it yet, but it is a great game and I've seen it get played out in Let's Plays, and it may even be the best Spider-Man game since the Spider-Man 2 movie tie-in. But where Marvel Spidey stands out is its original and more emotional story, focusing nicely on the mentor-student relationship between Peter Parker and Otto Octavius, and if you know anything, you know that it doesn't turn out great, but it's incredible to see how it unravels. That's not to mention the absolute tear that Rocksteady went on with the other Arkham games. City, Origins and Knight are all great additions to that franchise, and I would like to see Rocksteady try to add another one. Shut up, Kill the Justice League doesn't count. And it's not like we can't get great superhero games in the modern day either, whether they're based on movies like X-Men Origins Wolverine and Spider-Man 2, more original stuff like Justice League Heroes and the Deadpool video game, or even comic book storylines like Midnight Suns and the Arkham series. There can still be good to even great modern day superhero games. It doesn't matter which side you choose to be on, or even if you've played any of the games I've mentioned, just as long as you remember why you fell in love with heroes or gaming in the first place. There's still great things to be found if you know where to look. You just need to remember that you have heroes, you have places you can escape to, and you especially need to remember that, well, it's not all bad. And that'll about do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really liking doing this series. I am considering it a series now, especially because this is the second one I've done. I do have a concept in mind for the next one, and it's going to be quite interesting. Because I've got it like laid out in my head. I don't know what I'm going to do for the one after that, but I'm going to try and focus on the next one. I hope you all like this video, and I hope like it triggered some good nostalgic memories of old superhero games that you might have liked, because this was just really fun to do. And yeah, I think it covers like a lot of my life playing superhero-based video games, especially considering that they're two mediums I really enjoy. That'll about do it. I don't really have much else to ramble on about. The next thing I'll see you for might be an episode of Music of the Week on Thursday, so I'll see you all for that, and as always, thank you for watching, you're awesome, bye bye.